Many Americans remember waking up on Saturday morning to watch their favorite cartoons, including shows like The Jetsons. As I look at the Senate pages who are here, I suspect none of you have any memory of The Jetsons. For those who are under 40 in the chamber or watching at home, The Jetsons was a futuristic cartoon set in the year 2062. And it depicted a family from the future who had fun, imaginative technologies like jetpacks and holograms and video calls and robot vacuums and smart watches and flying cars. While we're still waiting to see those flying cars in the air, we already have a lot of the Jetsons technology available to us now. In many cases, even better than what was depicted in cartoon on the show. Today, internet-connected smart devices are commonly used in American households. Light bulbs, mirrors, air fryers, coffee makers, trash cans, kitchen faucets, refrigerators, and more are all becoming, quote-unquote, smart. And we're able to control them with our phones or voice commands. A lot of that is really cool. It's expected that in a few years, nearly 70% of American households, more than 80 million households, will own at least one smart home product. And this is by and large a good thing. Smart devices can help us improve our quality of life and complete daily tasks more easily. But with any technological advancement, there can be trade-offs. And for smart devices, one of the potential trade-offs is our privacy. In Texas, we've become very aware of that cost. The past few years, smart thermostats have allowed electric companies to control the temperature in your own home from afar in the name of conserving energy. Furthermore, a lot of Americans don't realize or expect that the growing number of smart household devices and appliances have cameras on them and microphones that can surreptitiously record families and transmit data. In other words, when you're buying a new refrigerator, you don't expect your fridge to record you or listen to you or spy on you without your knowledge. And while some manufacturers have responsibly taken steps to more clearly label their products and to let consumers know they contain listening devices or cameras, others have not. And so, I've introduced bipartisan legislation, which I authored alongside Senator Cantwell of Washington, a Democrat, the chairman of the Commerce Committee. I'm the ranking member of the Commerce Committee. Our bipartisan legislation would simply ensure that this information is clearly communicated to consumers so that you're informed before you buy a product that's going to photograph you or film you or record you, so that doesn't happen against your wishes and without your knowledge. Now, I expect in a minute we're going to hear opposition to my bill. Opposition focused on the proposition that any mandate put on a private company is somehow a burden. And it's a mandate to require your refrigerator manufacturer to tell you if your fridge is spying on you. Now, I'm sympathetic to the argument that there are too many mandates from government, and that many of the mandates are unnecessary and burdensome and costly. But requiring a manufacturer to tell you if they're spying on you does not fall into that category. And I have to say, in assessing the minimal burden, the disclosure burden, against the harm, I fall down on the side of individual liberty. I fall down on the side of privacy. I don't think the American people want their air fryer spying on them, and at a minimum, they have a right to know if their air fryer is spying on them. Now, I would note My colleagues on both sides of the aisle agree. The presiding officer today serves on the Commerce Committee. This legislation passed the Commerce Committee by voice vote, with bipartisan support from both sides of the aisle. This should be a simple, easy, pro-privacy step to protect consumers. For that reason, as if in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation be discharged from further consideration of H.R. 538 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. Further, that the Cruz Cantwell substitute amendment at the desk be considered and agreed to. The bill as amended be considered read a third time and passed, and the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Mr. President,
Senator from Kentucky.
reserving the right to object. Far too often, Congress operates under the delusion that we know what is best for the American consumer. Instead of allowing market participants to determine the information they want, we seek to manipulate the free market to impose our preferences on private actors. As I'm sure my colleague will readily agree, the federal government is far too large in size and scope. In this case, additional federal regulation and the associated potential penalties and costs is not appropriate. This is not a case of industry committing fraud or making willful misrepresentations about their products. This bill simply mandates what manufacturers must tell consumers because it assumes that consumers are not sophisticated enough to make the judgment themselves. If American consumers want more information about a product, they can be sure they will make it known. If a manufacturer wants to sell more of their products, you can be sure they will listen to the consumers. Congress doesn't need to insert itself into every equation. I object.
Objection is noted.
Mr. President.
Senator from Texas.
So I've listened to the objections of my friend from Kentucky, and I use that word as many do on this floor, although he's not listening to my response, but that's his choice. The first time I ever spoke on the floor was in support of Senator Paul's filibuster in 2013. Senator Paul is fond of telling his constituents that he's a libertarian, that he defends privacy. I'm not quite a libertarian, I'm a conservative, but I have strong libertarian leanings. And I want to note the irony that Senator Paul, who's devoted his entire public career to defending liberty and defending privacy, just objected to protecting the privacy of over 300 million Americans. Just objected to Americans knowing whether they're being spied on at home. I have to admit, it's truly flabbergasting. I'd like to invite my colleague, Senator Paul, to join me in front of a gathering of libertarians. And let's discuss with libertarians which side of the aisle you want to be on. Do you want to be on the side of big business, surreptitiously tape recording, photographing, and videoing you in your home, in your bedroom, without you knowing about it? Or is a mild and nominal disclosure requirement simply saying if you're going to tape record someone or videotape them in their house, you got to tell them? Is that a justifiable burden? I hope that in time reason will prevail, because we ought to be protecting privacy. This is a bill, if we vote on the Senate floor, I'm confident the vote would be 99-1. I am confident every senator, except the senator who just objected, would support this bill. Protecting people's privacy is a good idea, and I hope the Senate can get there as a body. I yield the floor.